YouTube now, and here we go. Hey everybody, it's Wednesday. We are city election cycling it up. We're trying to get a hold of as many city candidates as we can. Talk plans, talk things we do like, things we don't like, things we want to change, things we think should be the same. But one thing that is the same is fanaticbrewing.com is still our sponsor. Check out fanaticbrewing.com/agreement for me and tell them that you like their beer and that we sent you that way, and that'll really help us out. They are located at 2727 North Central Avenue. They're a little bit past Happy Holler. Their tap room is called The Fan Base. Go check it out. They are now open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 p.m. to whenever they feel like kicking you guys out. Thursday, they have open mic night comedy. Friday and Saturday, they have $5 Black Angus burgers and $5 Black Bean burgers, as well as a $3 pint special to go check out there. We are Almost an Agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Our website is up and running. It is almostanagreement.com. You can go there and get all the episodes for the history of time, or you can get all the episodes from your favorite podcast provider. While you're at any of those places, please like, share, do all that kind of thing. Help us get the word out. We are trying to understand the government as it works around us. And, we spent a long time not knowing it, so here we go. All right. Jen say the last name for me, make sure I don't screw it up. McMahon, okay. It's one of that's one of those names that's spelled like 15 different ways. And
yeah.
I tend to screw it up.
I usually get McMahon, so I'm used to whatever, as long as you don't call me late for dinner.
These are the jokes, people. We'll be at Fanatic on Thursday telling them. Here we go. So when I get district stuff, whenever I'm doing races and stuff like that, I want to start off with the geography. Explain to me where District 4 in the city is.
Yeah. So basically, it starts at the Happy Holler corner by Woodland, and then it goes over into the Old City. Not the Old City. Old North Knox by St. Mary's.
Okay.
And then it continues to travel down Broadway and into Fountain City. It also reaches and spans over into the North Hills area on the other side of Broadway. And then there's a small portion that also covers Holston Hills. Okay,
so that's Fulton High School, the new Communities Justice Center, or whatever they're calling the new police department, because we can't just call it a police department anymore.
Safety. I think it's a safety
center. Yeah, there you go. And then I'll have. Does that get all the way out to where Easttown or the new Amazon building is and stuff like that too?
It does not.
Okay, so it ends short of there. Okay, so does it go? How far up Central does it go?
It goes basically. I actually have the map pulled up right now. KGIS.
I mean, if I'm really all I'm digging for here is whether or not you represent fanaticbrewing.com/agreement, since I'm really feeling pluggy today and making sure my sponsor's happy with our plugs of them. But so Central, North Central, Knoxville, most of the Broadway corridor and all that kind of stuff, that works for what we're trying to figure out for today. So I don't know, where did the beginnings of politics come for you?
Yeah. So basically, I'm a Northerner. I moved here from Northeast Ohio, and I actually come from a long line of badass women. My grandmother was the first city councilwoman back in 1962 or 63 in Harrison County up in Northeast Ohio. So she was the first woman ever to be elected, also through the Democratic Party. And then from there, she was a part of the Geraldine Ferraro Walter Mondale political race. And she was going to be a part of, Mondale's team if he did get elected against Reagan. So I, following in my grandma's footsteps, I have been in the nonprofit sector for almost 10 years. And, we can do a lot in nonprofits because we aren't restricted. We're working directly with the community. We're making things happen. But there always is kind of that stopping point. We see issues that are going on in our community. We know that we need funding to be able to help the folks that we're working with. And so basically, I want to be able to, uh, work with that. And by being a politician, by holding a political seat, I'll be able to actually make and implement the changes on a larger scale, and not just, you know, directly through nonprofit work.
I gotcha.
Um,
Okay. And so so that, like, was there a specific set of series of events or anything that kind of flipped the switch from I want to step above the nonprofit into the actual seeking an office part, or was it just kind of the natural transition, the growth that you've been going through all your different work?
I would say probably it was ignited back in 2015 when I was in AmeriCorps Vista with Compassion Coalition. That's now a part of the Knoxville Leadership Foundation. And I became a part of the Knox County Homeless Coalition. And at that time, they were closing the 10-year plan to end homelessness. And unfortunately, homelessness was not ended in Knoxville
No.
in 2015. And after sitting in on a couple meetings with Knox County Homeless Coalition, working in the nonprofit sector here, I basically got tired of sitting in meetings, tons and tons and tons of meetings of community members, nonprofit workers, case managers through social services, all sitting down at these tables and saying, here's the research, here's the data, here's the gaps in services, and this is what we need. And then our city government saying, that's really nice, but I'm going to give the police department a little bit more money.
Right.
So, that was where I kind of became a little bit radicalized, because I was sitting in, like I said, sitting in all these meetings. We have all the data, all the support, all this community input, and then nothing is done with it. And so basically back in 2017, when I started the current organization that I run and that I'm the CEO of, I knew that I wanted to start my political career then. So yeah, it's kind of just been, I've been tired of sitting in meetings and not seeing anything done. And I'm ready to actually make some change and have folks' voices be heard and have a spot at the table for them.
Okay, I get you. Okay, so what are some of those changes that's top of your list come I guess early December when you take the seat?
Yeah, so the one thing that I really am passionate about is creating equitable and affordable housing. Right now, a huge budget just got passed last night. And within that budget, $81 million was allocated towards KPD. Only $1 million, was put towards affordable housing. And if you keep going down the list, a lot of social services just got crumbs to be able to, fill bullet wounds with just super, super small finger-sized bandages. So like I said, the first thing is affordable housing, to reallocate city funds to create actual affordable housing units, because I believe that no one should go into extreme debt or have to work 3 jobs to keep a roof over their head. They just put in 102 quote unquote affordable housing units over in West Knoxville, and actually only 27 of those units are considered affordable housing.
What's the threshold? What's the actual matrix for what we call affordable housing?
Yeah, so affordable housing is basically an individual's not spending over 35 to 40% of their overall income on housing. So if you're paying above 30 to 40% of your overall income, you are not maintaining affordable housing.
Well then, okay, bank's screwed up giving me a loan then.
Yeah, yes. So
I mean, I'd have to do the full math, but I'd say I'm right at the threshold in my house, and I'm right out here in the heart of West Knoxville in the big money side of town. But my house isn't that nice or anything. But because that's one of those things. This is one of the things that I struggle with most. Like, I mean, we've been doing this for a little over a year now, and I'm just I'm just a guy trying to figure out what's going on, and I'm assuming I'm not special. And there's a lot of other people like me that are trying to figure out what's going on. And so, like, a lot of these phrases that we all hear in the media and through just different activist groups and stuff like that get thrown out there, and they're like, I'm comfortable being dumb enough to ask what that actually means, because I think a lot of people just operate off the, what is affordable housing? Well, I don't know what it means. And so now at least I have a number to go off of. And so stuff like that. So that's what I want part of what I want out of the show. I want people to have a less agendized version of especially the politics, but more importantly, I want people to understand how their government works, because that's the thing. I mean, 14, 16 months in, I still don't understand exactly how the city and the city mayor and the council actually interact. Like, there's been discussion of it's what they call a mayor-heavy system, where the mayor can kind of do what she wants anyway, regardless of the council's approval. And so it's like, well, what's the point of the council? And so things like this is what I'm trying to figure out. And so that in particular, among other things, I'm sure we'll discuss is what I'm trying to learn. And so what are some of the steps to, like, okay, so we have some of the city budget that's going towards affordable housing. So what does that do? Like, what is actually happening when a municipality puts forth funding to affordable housing programs?
So let me tell you about how they actually get to being able to apply for federal dollars for affordable housing. So my background was, I was a case manager for the supportive services for veteran families program. I was also the homeless management information system data coordinator for the 18 counties surrounding Knox County. And Knox County has their own system of their self through their own continuum of care. And that's another hot button word, which is continuum of care. So it's basically a care system based on how many individuals are living within a specific region. And because Knoxville has so many social services and so many individuals living in the county, there's only one continuum of care for Knox County. And because resources are so spread out and so limited in the other counties surrounding Knox, they created a continuum of care outside of Knox. So that basically shows you that our rural counties have absolutely no resources for folks. And not saying that Knoxville has all the resources for folks, but so I worked as the homeless management information system data coordinator for all those counties surrounding Knox County. And basically, I collected that information for a couple of different reasons. One, so that the agencies that did input information about the folks that they were serving were able to utilize that data for possible grant funding, for them to educate their community about homelessness, and basically for the benefit of that organization to improve their services, et cetera, et cetera. And then, secondly, that data is also used and given to the state and federal government to be able to request certain funding through Housing and Urban Development, aka HUD. So basically, our communities have to have data and research to back up any requests for housing assistance that within the continuum of care. So basically, what Knoxville did was they utilized some data from homeless management information system and probably other data collection services as well. And then they wrote a grant to be able to get, federal dollars and funding. And then, basically, as we all know, if you apply for a grant, you have to use those funds accordingly. Because you have to keep track of them, keep reports, et cetera, so that you aren't breaking a 501c3 and abusing funds. So basically, we put forth all this information, got this funding for Knoxville, and we're not using it correctly. The plan that was just put forth basically is like a lot of gentrification, a lot of making really nice sidewalks, putting in benches, updating homes, that, you know, might be in disarray, and weatherize them. And so all of this is to say is that the funding that we've gotten from the federal government, the state government, isn't being directed in the right way.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm uber confused now.
Yeah.
So the mayor's budget that she just put out and the funding she's using towards the homelessness situation is coming from a federal grant. It's not coming from local tax money.
I think that is correct.
Okay, because I got really excited. I was looking forward to budget season, trying to get get a handle on how these budget works, and I don't know. That passed last night. That budget was available for like 3 weeks for review, and like that again. One of the things trying to understand how these things work is one of the things is where the money's coming from, and then where the money's going, and so that is a helpful insight. I'm still I need to dig into the budget, I guess, personally, and try to figure out a little bit more about that part of it. But so I don't. Okay, all right. This is
Yeah, right?
it's a procedural question that's coming to mind. And it's like, well, why would grant funded programs even be in a mayor's budget for approval? If the grant's already approved, it should have nothing to do with the annual budget. It should be this grant comes in whenever this grant comes in, and we do the thing that the grant says we have to do. The budget to me should just be our actual local tax collection and what the city plans on doing with our local tax collection, because that it's a wholly separate entity. It doesn't make sense that those are combined into one budget at all. Like I'm trying to rationalize why that isn't done that way, which I don't know if you know or not, but that's not important. So anyway, so grant money's getting, and so when you say it's not being used correctly, it's not being used correctly for what the grant states it is, or it's just being pilfered in the process.
So the last city council meeting that I attended was about, not last week, that week after, so about 3 weeks ago. And they put forth, so they put forth an entire housing plan that outlines where this grant funding would be going, you know, what it would be used for, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I know that it's supposed to be approved and it's supposed to be delegated in the right way. But after going through, I'll actually shoot that over to you so that you can see it. This was like given out to the public, so everybody has access to it. But yeah, I mean, we're hoping that those dollars that are coming in are going to be used in the right way. But from that plan that was pushed forth, it's a lot of, it looks like affordable housing, but it's not affordable housing.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I just went blank on that whole thing because again, it's just, I mean, one of the things for me personally is like, I am happy to do something different when we agree that current doesn't work.
Right.
And so, although I have my own philosophy on what I think is the right way to do things and not this, that, and the other, I'm open to things that are even go against my philosophy, just as long as it's a different, because obviously status quo is not getting things done. And so we need to start looking at things differently. And so I'm so specifically lost on this shell game of money, essentially, is what we're talking about here. And I don't know, we need to push off it and push on to some other pillar of your campaign, so I can try to bring my brain back into my forehead.
Yeah. So in addition to like affordable housing, you know, I want to reallocate and invest funds into. So my second piece of my platform is that everyone deserves the right to work in a supportive, safe, and living wage position. I want to
another quick clarification of numbers, since we're doing that, since we did that with what affordable housing is. What is a living wage? Is that the term?
That's correct.
What is a living wage?
A living wage. So right now people are fighting for $15 an hour, but that's not really a living wage. A living wage is a position that has healthcare benefits, sick leave, paid time off, in addition to the payment hourly being about $17.50 to $25 an hour.
Okay.
Those are considered living wage positions.
And that is, where does that number come from?
I can actually pull that up for you right now.
Because one of the things with me, a lot of the minimum wage conversation for me is I'm not a big fan of the premise, but in the being open to things kind of stance is that there's a difference between living in California, New York, Chicago living wage and a Knoxville living wage.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what the solution to balance that out is, because again, half the stuff has to come from at least the state level anyway. And so Nashville, Knoxville, Morristown are three completely different living wages.
Absolutely. So I just shared with you a living wage calculator, and it is through MIT. And they basically on the site, you get to type in any city, and they do breakdowns. And so I'm looking at Knoxville. For 0 children, the living wage is, for one adult with 0 children, is $12.98. For one child, it's $26.72. For 2 children, it's $32.73 an hour. And for 3 children, it's $41.67.
Okay.
And for 2 adults working, with 1 working, the living wage with 0 children would be $21.51. 1 child is $25.79. 2 children is $29.19, and 3 children is $31.23. So you can see, yeah, you're right on it. So, and then it goes down into typical expenses per 1 adult, and then for 2 people. And so if you're looking at that, that doesn't even come close to what most folks in Knoxville make. Geez, I mean, looking at the food, childcare, medical, housing, transportation, civic, other income taxes, annual taxes, and then the required income for taxes. If you scroll down even more, it's just like,
yeah.
How do we expect people to pay all this with not a living wage?
So this, okay, so I got 2 kids, so it's telling me that 2 kids, 2 adults working, 1 working. How do you do it if you have 2 adults that are working?
So if you just scroll over, just look more, I'll say 2 adults, both working.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. 75. So I need to be making $75,000 a year. Required annual income before taxes. So what's the math on that? That would be living wage with 2 kids, both adults working, is $18 an hour. 13. Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to save that and bounce through that a little bit more. I mean, here's the issue with me. I'm a business owner. I've got employees. I pay my employees what I consider fairly well for what they do. How do I afford to stay in business when I'm looking at, I guess, let me pull it back up, make sure I look at it right. Assuming that they're just single with no kids, $12.98, well, I'll pay over that then. So I'm good on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing good.
But I'm not doing good if it's 2 adults with 1 working with no kids.
Correct.
So, I mean, I can't, I'd have to look, I'd have to look at it. I'd have to really do some calculation to do the math on it, but to get into what they're considered living wage for my employees, I would have to do some significant changes to the way we do business, which isn't not necessarily a bad thing. But I don't know that I could compete in the market with pricing. I don't know how I could do it without raising prices of product.
Yeah.
And how does that not just slowly shift the number up anyway? That's my problem with the minimum wage conversation, is that inflation is required at some level. It may not be directed, it may not be proportionate, but at some level, any raise in base wages is going to bring up the cost of living at some level, which then requires another increase in wages to offset the cost of living rise. And that's what I get. And again, I'm fully ignorant, and I understand that, but that's one of the things I don't understand. like how we combat that issue with raising wages.
Yeah, I mean, basically, when it comes to living wages, a lot of it has to do with these large corporations um, paying their workers nothing. If you look at Amazon, this guy makes over 9 grand a second. I mean, he makes over 9 grand a second. And I know that he's paying his employees at $15 an hour. Um, but that's not going to, by increasing their wages, it's not going to make a super large jump. It's the same thing with folks at McDonald's. I mean, their CEO is making thousands by the minute. Their burger prices have went up, but their wages stayed the same for over 20 years. So, I mean, the prices are still continuing to go up. People aren't making any more money, and the people up above are continuing to benefit from everybody else's work. I think that we have to worry more about those larger corporations than the small mom and pop shops.
I mean, I agree with you in the sense, but how do I compete with Amazon when he can afford to pay his employee? He can take that personal hit, if you will, of losing some of that $9,000 a second or whatever it is to pay $25, $30, $50 an hour. It doesn't matter. How do I compete for employees if I can't afford them at 20 in the first place as a small business? How do I have a chance of competing with an Amazon on any level of the game if that's the case, especially if it's a requirement? That's my problem with it, because if last I heard, Bezos was on board with a minimum wage increase because it's a competitive advantage for him, and it hurts the mom and pops and anybody else. And any hope for any real competition for him is damaged by a raised minimum wage.
You're hitting it. You're hitting it right there. Our system is designed so that large corporations continue to thrive, and our small businesses continue to suffer.
But I guess what I'm asking is, how does a living wage quote combat that?
How does a living wage combat
the system designed to let the biggest get bigger? Because in my interpretation of it, in my understanding of it, the biggest are only going to get bigger or faster because the small guy has even less of a chance to compete with a raised minimum wage.
So that's why we need to tax the hell out of these big organizations and stop having them, not pay taxes. I mean, Jeff Bezos pays less taxes than I do.
Jeff Bezos does, or Amazon does? Because I looked that up the other day, because I've heard the phrase 1,000 times, and I tried to look it up, and I could not find his taxes. I could find 1,000 articles about how Amazon pays $0 in taxes, which that's a separate conversation. I don't know. That's not public record, is it? We can't just look up his personal taxes.
No.
I would push back a little bit on that statement that you pay more in taxes than he does. You probably pay more in taxes than his companies do.
Yes.
But
I would say that Amazon. So let me redact that statement.
Okay.
Amazon pays less in taxes than I do.
Right. And my business here in Knoxville pays less in taxes than you do. Probably not. Right. Maybe. I don't know. In income taxes, probably. Because I personally do. Everything that my business makes, I pay taxes on. So should that be taxed twice? Is that the solution?
No, it is not the solution. It's the solution to go after large businesses, because we're not going to be able to make any changes on a local level other than being able to give assistance to local businesses as we make a transition within our economy, because our super large businesses thrived during the pandemic.
Correct.
So, I mean, on a small level, to fix an immediate problem, we would be able to give assistance to small businesses to be able to support their employees on a smaller scale. That's one solution. Another immediate solution is being able to really have our city and local government support, promote, and ensure that our local businesses, are supported in the areas of marketing, in the areas of exposure. So those are the two smaller level things that I can think of in regards to helping local businesses improve how much wage that they can, supply their employees. Because based on what you just said, you are paying your folks a living wage if they are a single individual household with no children. So when I'm thinking about living wage, I'm not thinking about your business. I'm thinking about these larger businesses that got the PPP loans for $350,000 when they didn't need it. We saw a lot of businesses get that money, correct?
Sure.
Um,
But I don't know. That's okay. I'm not. That's not worth pushing back on. I'll leave that alone. Go ahead. Continue.
no. I mean, the affordable. I'm sorry. The living wage issue. Of course, I can try to deal with it locally, but it's really hard to address that when, like you said, when businesses like Amazon and these larger corporations continue to basically not be treated the same way as your business is.
Right.
Correct?
Right. Because one of the things that I've talked to some people about is kind of changing the pilot and TIF programs to include smaller businesses, because all the pilot and TIF programs always go to the biggest 500, 700,000 employee companies, and my 10 employee company doesn't have a chance in hell to even start a conversation about getting any assistance in that realm. And that's something I think is just in the sake of fairness is appropriate, for sure. So I don't know, because again, we've had this, not we, you and I, but I've had a similar conversation about minimum wage and stuff like that in prior conversations with different people. And one of the things I think about a lot is instead of going after wages, is there something we can do about cost of living? Obviously, affordable housing is a big one in that conversation. But some of the other things on our list of that MIT thing that you sent, and the cost of healthcare is one of the biggest ones. And again, this is one of those that's weird to me, because my philosophy wants things more local, more local, less federal. And because we can manage and we can adjust to our locality's needs a lot better and a lot quicker and a lot more efficiently here than DC's ever going to do in 100 years. And so, when it gets to like the cost of healthcare, a lot of these other costs that go into the cost of living, what can we do locally to address some of those things?
Absolutely. When it comes to utilities, I want to be able to revisit a amendment that was going to be added to the city charter last year through SAWS, which is the South Eastern Alliance for Clean Energy. They put forth an amendment last year to basically keep and hold KUB accountable, because on average, each KUB customer pays $85 in fixed fees. There's no local board oversight of KUB and how much they charge folks.
See, I was told there was a county in the county office. The county mayor's office has a utility board oversight.
They do, but there's nobody from the community, and it stayed the same. The board members are on that board for 7 years.
Okay.
So, as you know, like during the pandemic, so many people were trying to freeze fees. So yeah, they weren't shutting off utilities. So that's great because it kept people warm or kept people cool during the crappy times of our year. But those fees just continued to accrue and accrue and accrue and accrue. So we have households now sitting on utility bills of $7,000 to $8,000 over the span of last year, and KUB is not doing anything about it. And so KUB is also, I moved down here from Ohio. In Ohio, I have a separate gas utility person, I have a separate water utility person, and I had a separate electric. So 3 separate companies. KUB monopolizes all of it. And so basically it's kind of like a Comcast situation. that's the only service provider in my area, so I have to go with them.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
Well, KUB might cover your Comcast here pretty soon too, which doesn't help the grand scheme of things when their broadband gets moving.
mhm.
But and I agree. Like the premise of a utility to me is it is a local sanctioned. It's a local sanctioned monopoly. That's what it's supposed to be, because we can't have 15 different companies running sewage lines down the street, and we can't have 15 different companies running power lines on the poles, because like those crazy pictures like in India or whatever, where they have the telephone pole that's got 10,000 wires hanging off it. That's not how we want to live as people. So we allow this one company to be the monopoly with oversight hard question mark at the end. And I agree, because I had a big fight with KUB personally recently. Everybody that listens to the show regularly is probably tired of me complaining about it, but I'm in the county. I had septic service, or septic in my yard or whatever, and state law required to me, I cannot do anything to my septic system. If my septic system fails, I have to hook up. And so by having to hook up, I had to pay KUB $1,500 to hook up, and now I have to pay wastewater on my utility bills moving forward. And it's like, I respect the idea that for the community good, I need to hook up to wastewater. It's a better way to get rid of my poop and whatnot in the process. I understand that. But that I have to pay for the privilege to pay for the service really bothers me. And that it's a state law that requires that, and there's nothing I can do about it. And had it happened 2 years prior, I would have dug a hole in the backyard and had me and my wife and my kids shitting out there, because I couldn't have afforded it. And there was no system, there's no conversation, there's no way to help with it. It's just, this is the way things are. And it's a utility board, so we don't have a choice. And and again, like, it's not an affordability thing for me at this point. The world has turned forward and things have turned well for me. Not that I'm making a gajillion dollars off this podcast, but that's the goal. But you know, that had I been in a different situation, I don't know. I mean, I really don't know what I would have done. And I don't know what options there could have been, because if I hadn't been doing the podcast, I wouldn't have known the rules at play anyway, because I'd had Massey and Manis on the show. And when it was explained to me by KUB that it was state law, I called them up, because I had, they are my representatives, so they should answer my phone anyway, but I had a foot in the door because I had them on the podcast prior. And, just understanding it doesn't help me financially, but at least it puts a little bit of sense to it, sort of. And so trying to get through that whole thing, because again, I respect the premise of what a utility is supposed to be.
Right.
But supposed to be and is are the issues at play.
Absolutely. And that's one of the key things, back to your question of how do we address all of those other, things that folks have to pay for to be able to survive and live. Let's go through it. We have, food. So we talked about utilities. Let's talk about food. I mean, we're living right in the heartlands of, we live in East Tennessee. There's freaking farms all over the place. There's tons of abandoned lots, throughout Knoxville. And people are going without. I mean, in my line of work right now, so I'm the CEO and co-founder of Century Harvest Farms Foundation, where we are a 350-acre farm out in Greenback, and now we have a farm in the Old City called Knox City Farm. And one of the main premises of what we do here is it's all about being able to teach and empower folks on how to grow their own food. And creating collaborative systems throughout the counties that I serve to ensure that everybody has access to sustainable and reliable sources of food. So we have an awesome mobile Meals on Wheels program in Knoxville, but we don't need to continue to just provide food. I want people to feel empowered and be able to grab healthy sources of food. So there's a ton of different nonprofits in downtown. So one of them is Seed, another one is Battlefield Farms, Beardsley Farms. These are just examples of farms that are growing food that is donated directly to folks in Knoxville and kind of like working community gardens. and Century Harvest is now an additional garden in Knoxville that's providing folks alternative food sources. But I want to see more green spaces popping up in Knoxville, and more folks having the opportunity to grow their own food, and feel empowered in doing it. Um, it's one of the most awesome things, to see somebody that has never had the privilege to see a fresh carrot come out of the ground and be able to taste it.
Right.
It's and to know that they grew it. I love planning and caring for my small little plant babies that I have in my house. I love seeing them grow up, but being able to see your own source of food growing and being able to give it to your families is an awesome thing. So I want to be able to address food security through creating more community-led gardens, in addition to putting more funding towards mobile Meals on Wheels, and other community organizations that are providing food and sustainability to folks as well.
Gotcha. Did you see Knox County is selling off their surplus property? That auction coming up?
I did not see that.
Yeah, Knox County's their seized properties for tax evasion, whatever the tax thing is that they seize properties for. I don't know, just it hit my brain as you were talking about it. Some of these, because some of these will go back to hit market and pay next to nothing for, and would be a good little garden project if you could find them. Because I think that'd be a fun use of something like that. Or maybe there's a program that could be put in place where instead of selling it back to the market and letting somebody build something on it, we could use some of that property for things like that. Because I don't know. I mean, I'm perfectly down with anything that empowers people to do it on their own, to make their own food, to make their own way, and food security is an issue for a number of people, and to be able to kind of hit two birds with one stone, for lack of a better phrase, by giving people a purpose and a power and a self-power, and not having to worry about where to get some food tomorrow is a double bonus. What else you got on your agenda list?
Let's see here. Affordable childcare. Folks can't maintain or sustain jobs if they don't have childcare. I'm a new mom. I got a little five. Thanks. I'm a new mom. I have a little 5-month-old at home, and I'm running a nonprofit, and now I'm running for city council. Oh my gosh. So I need to have affordable and reliable childcare. And luckily, I've had some really awesome family members that have been able to, help take care of my little one as I've been making this transition from working at home with him, to being more of an independent, working mom. But I'm one of the rarities, finding affordable childcare that doesn't take like $1,500 out of your paycheck, like every week. It's few and far between.
Right.
I mean, do you have, not to ask you a personal question, but do you have your kiddos in childcare?
I got Knox County Schools.
There we go.
I mean, mine are of that age. So here in a couple of weeks, no, I don't. They will be home full time, but the missus works nights, so we kind of tag team it, so it works out okay for us. And it's part-time nights at that, so it's only a couple nights a week that she works. So we are fortunate in that we can afford what we need to do in the way we need to do it. But when we were new parents, we had grandparents on call pretty regularly, which was very very fortunate for us as well. And I can see that as one of those things. So affordable childcare. Does that include a pre-K program, or is that just like regular daycare stuff?
That's pre-K, and general childcare.
Okay.
Yes. So that's another one. In addition, it's allocating investing funds into Black-owned businesses with leadership and guidance of Knoxville's Black business owners and community leaders. Looking at the current statistics, there's a poverty rate of 42% amongst Black community here in Knoxville. And Black Knoxvillians don't make up a large portion of our population in Knox County in Knoxville. And so for Black folks to have that much level of poverty, it says something. That says that there's a lack of resources in Black community. It's saying that our government isn't investing in small business owners in general, but also are not investing in Black business owners. And I'm very glad that the city did push forth kind of a program where they're trying to invest more funds back into the Black community over a span of I think it's 2 to 3 years. I don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure the prolonged period of support. But yeah, I mean, we need to invest in our Black-owned businesses, because if we're looking at businesses that are owned by white folks compared to businesses that are owned by Black folks, it's
right.
It just doesn't make very much sense to me. Businesses, small businesses and businesses should reflect, our entire community.
Well, okay, I don't know, because I don't know the answer is, but this is the question. So, what is the percentage of Knox County that is, what percent of Knox County is Black, or the city of Knoxville, whichever what we want to use?
I have this up on my computer as well. Sorry about that. I'm taking away from our time.
Oh no, because this is what these are the things I want to know. Because it's one of those it's really just while you're looking, I'll rant for a second.
Yeah, please.
While we have political conversations, we all speak in what we think it means and what we think it says, and what I heard from somebody it says. And when I have the opportunity to have somebody that knows where the stat is and has the stat somewhat handy, I'm going to take the opportunity to distract from the discussion to get that stat out, so I can be like, no. According to whatever source that you're about to share with us, this is the numbers as we understand it, and just to compare it. Because the follow-up's got to be what percentage of the community is Black, and then what percentage of the community businesses are Black-owned. Because I don't know either of those numbers, but I am guilty as the next guy of speaking as if I do. And this is how we learn, is by understanding what we don't know and taking the time to figure it out.
Absolutely. So from a 2029 census, 17%.
Hold on, this one's from the future?
Sorry. 2019.
It's okay.
17% of the city's population is Black.
Okay.
Okay. And then 45% of that 17% is living in poverty.
Okay. So what's that same, while you got that numbers up, what percentage of is this Knoxville City or county? Are you on KGIS?
Yeah.
Then it should be county.
Yeah. It's just Knoxville in general. It's not even Knox County.
Okay, so city. Okay.
Yeah.
What percentage of the city is white?
Let's see here.
I mean, I could totally do this myself, but it's more fun this way.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. Looking for them stats. So we got 17%. Then we got, one moment. I want to get you the proper, here we are. Okay. So it's 71.6.
Okay. And what percentage of that is in poverty?
Let's see. Looking at COVID-19 number. Okay. Okay. So now I am looking at Data USA. Of employees. Diversity. Okay. So sorry. Just trying to make sure I give you the
No,
right info.
no, absolutely. I am taking advantage of my new research assistant. Everybody, this is fun.
All right. So we got 76.1% is white, 17% is black, 0.4% is American Indian, 1.8% is Asian, 0.1% is Native Hawaiian, 5.3% is Hispanic or Latino.
Okay.
And then 3.1% is 2 or more races present. So somebody that's biracial.
Right. Which, if you go back far enough, everybody is, but we don't count it that way, so we don't count it that way. All right. Anyway, interesting stuff. I like it. I'm fun. I'm excited about it. Okay. So where were we went off on a tangent there. Where were we right before we went off on our data tangent?
We were talking about investing funds.
Oh yeah. Right. Because I mean, it's it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's the small business in general is whether it's of color or not, in using the powers of the government and that budget and those things that play to empower local small businesses, regardless, is a step in the right direction for our community as a whole. And whether we want to subdivide that into the portions of the community that are in more need, where the stats are there, 17% is almost half in poverty. That would be a logical use of that power that we have as governing bodies, instead of, where this is my smooth transition into the baseball conversation, is, instead of spending $65 million on a baseball stadium for another white guy, even though his development manager is a black guy. But I don't know. I'm still trying to figure all that out. I've been going down that road. I'm pretty deep into the understanding this multi-use stadium project. So since it's on topic, since I so smoothly transitioned to it, how do you, I mean, it's going to be passed by the time election comes around, but how do you feel about this project moving forward?
I mean,
for me, okay, let me clarify my question, I guess. For me, this is one of those, and it's going to be a campaign issue, whether you want it to be or not, even though it's going to be past point by the time you get there. I think this is just one of those things that is going to be used as a measuring stick for candidates by the populace.
Absolutely.
And so, again, I understand that it may be something you haven't really put a lot of thought into, because it doesn't make sense for you to put any thought into it, because it really doesn't matter to your intent and your goals and your job. But the more I've thought about it, the more I've been asking that question fairly regularly on city council members or city council candidates.
Well, it is going to affect me. I mean, I might not be a part of the vote, but it is going to affect, where our dollars are going to be spent.
Right, for sure, right.
Funding I have access to, in trying to guide and help plan our budget for, 2022. So, this is my problem, is that voids have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. They don't need my tax dollars to build a stadium. They don't need, business owners like yourself that are trying to keep a payroll going to support, building a $65 million stadium. Knox Smokies, as you know, since you've been researching the project, I mean, it was already in Knoxville. It wasn't successful. It left, moved out to Sevierville. And honestly, in my mind, it just does not make sense for taxpayers to fund basically a private stadium idea.
Right.
I mean, we're creating a sports authority. So that's additional tax dollars that are going to be used, because they're going to be putting this all together and paying people to make all of this happen.
Well, I have to look. I'll have to double check that one, because I didn't think about that when I was talking to somebody about it in the past when we were looking into the. I think it's a volunteer position, the sports authority. I have to check on that. I don't know for sure.
Hope so.
The membership is, I believe, I don't know. I because they announced them a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if they've all been cleared yet or not. But that's a good question. I'll have to find the answer to.
Yeah, that'd be great. But yeah, I mean, that's my stance on it, is that I don't think that taxpayer dollars should be utilized to create the stadium.
But what I mean, but I guess for devil's advocate and conversation's sake, wouldn't this be a, what's the word I want to use? Like a major anchor investment into downtown East Knoxville, where
Then
future investment can come?
why don't they invest that money into already existing businesses that were affected by the pandemic, so that they can ensure that they can pay their employees wages, and keep their small businesses going. I mean, this goes back to the original question that you asked, is what is a living wage, and how do we address that? We don't put $65 million into a fucking baseball stadium, and we put it into small businesses that are already working and trying to make it in Knoxville. And so if we invest that money into small businesses, we don't need to continue to create all of these other things when there's already businesses established wanting to hire folks, but don't have the funds to be able to support paying a living wage. I mean, does that make sense?
I mean, sort of, but I mean, long term? I don't know. I mean, okay. I guess, all right. I'll have to put some thought into that before I just kind of knee jerk my standard business response on it. I mean, yeah, because I agree with you in the sense that the real question is not whether we want it or not, whether it, I mean, to me, I don't care. I mean, I do care, but whether it helps the Boyd family out or not is unimportant. It's whether or not we're spending this money on something that could be better spent elsewhere. That's the only real pushback logically to me, and I could get on board with it. As I understand the funding, though, I don't know. As I understand the funding, like me personally, I don't think I'm paying anything for it. If I understand how the funding is going to work, I mean, I guess we all did with our state sales tax part of the kick in, but for the most part, it's going to be those using it that are going to be paying for it. So the customer base that goes down there, the businesses that go in down there, and the different tax and collection methods that are going on with it. So for me, if I never go to a game or a concert or anything, or even go to the restaurant they're building in next door or whatever, I don't know that I will be contributing anything directly other than last year's sales tax that I paid personally. I think it's really complicated though, but yeah. I think I've got a handle on it.
Well, and I think that also highlights another issue, is the transparency in leadership. I mean, so I just opened up my Facebook page like 2 weeks ago, and people started asking me questions. People want to know who I am. People want to know what I stand for. People want to know what data, I have. I always try to answer all of my questions with data backing it up, and not just giving pure opinions. My background is in interdisciplinary anthropology, so it's all about finding the reason why. Before I push forward something, I want to do my research. And all these folks have started asking me questions, and I respond within a couple hours.
When you responded quickly to me, and I didn't ask. Well, I guess I did ask a question. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing? You need to come talk to me."
Yeah, and I think that I'm looking at other leaders within our community on city council, other folks that are holding elected positions, that aren't answering to their constituents, that aren't listening, and that are getting frustrated that they're kind of being held accountable. And that people are asking these hard questions. All these questions that you're asking me, none of it has been offensive, because it's literally a citizen trying to find out why I believe the way that I do, and getting to the bottom of, how I'm trying to work with and for the people.
Right. And I hopefully, and I am hopeful in the agreement, in the sense that it becomes the norm of engagement. I think that's one of the things that I was as guilty of as the next person, where I was very apathetic about my government locally, didn't really pay much attention. I would argue to death on national politics, and the more I argue about it, the more I realize I have zero input on that conversation. And so I started looking local, and I started looking hard local. And I mean, even in the completely selfish sense of my hopes to get this podcast off the ground and be able to retire from my day job and do this kind of full time, I don't know if it's going to happen, because I think apathy is normal. I had Chris Davis from the Election Commission on here not long ago talking about the city races coming up and certain district primaries having 1,200, 1,300 votes in a primary for a city office. It's like, if, you know, and it's one of those, like, 14 months into this, and I feel like at some points I'm pounding my head against the wall. Like, I'm trying really hard to talk to all these different elected officials and stuff like that, and some of them are a little bit less forthcoming than others. And I realize in doing it that nobody cares what they have to say anyway. And so what are we doing? Like, why am I, like, I mean, I have a good time, don't get me wrong. There's a selfish joy for me in doing this, but the lack of engagement by the public is becoming, maybe not becoming, but is a problem. And we soft demand the transparency, but then we just kind of quit and be like, oh, well, they didn't do it. Anyway, over here, there's a football game on or something like that, which, don't get me wrong, I'm a big football fan, but I think I think that lack of engagement on the whole, but locally, state and federally, is a problem that we have as a community that needs to be overcome. And some of that is simplification of the system, which there's no impetus to simplify the system because it makes your job harder. And just somehow making it engaging for the public to get back into it. I don't know. That's one of my goals in the show is I have my point of view. I have my opinions on how things should and shouldn't work or whatever like that. But really the point is to give access to and a point of contact for understanding how this thing works. And that's all I really want is the civics lesson that I don't remember from high school or never got. I don't remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that, I mean, you're 100% correct. I mean, folks aren't engaging in local government. And it's kind of like, oh, there's another city election, whatever. And I think that's part and parcel due to people not feeling heard. It's like, oh, my vote doesn't matter anyway. Like, it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen and it doesn't really matter. And the fact that we've even gotten there, I think I've said that to myself before. When I was younger, I was like, well, why would I need to vote? I mean, my vote doesn't even matter. My vote doesn't matter anyway.
Right.
And that's because our government, both local, state, and federal, just disenfranchises our voice. I mean, we literally elect folks to represent our voices. That's the whole basis of our whole damn government is we all are supposed to elect representatives that best represent who we are and what's going on in our communities. And I think that because of the way that politics have run over the last 60, 70, 80 years, Black women weren't even able to vote until like the mid 60s, fully.
Right.
So like I wasn't able to vote until like the 20s. So I mean, our system is still developing in how how long people's voices have considered to be heard. And so we have just this long history of people getting elected. Great, they're going to continue to do whatever the hell they want to anyway, whatever.
My only pushback, and this is not to say that we should go back to some shortening the list of people who are allowed to vote. That's not what I'm trying to say here at all. And whether it's a chicken or the egg maybe might be the conversation to have is you're right in the sense that being disenfranchised you pay less attention and because you don't feel like your vote matters. But one of the concerns I have, and especially as we're moving forward in the way politics are nowadays, is that it's hard to be an informed voter. And if you're already apathetic about it, it's like it's a city race, so it's nonpartisan, so it's a little bit different. But like the way this party politics game has evolved over time, and especially recently, where 9 out of 10 are running on, I'm not that person is worse than me. The Trump model, whether love him or hate him, it doesn't matter, but the Trump model of I'm not as bad as that one has become the norm in politics. I personally think it was pre-Trump when that started doing a thing, but Trump was the master, for lack of a better word, of the I'm not that bad. That is the bad, and I'm just going to point out the bad and just say I'm not that, and that's what I'm running on. Where, it's not the norm anymore that we're running as an individual and a set of ideas from a person. It's a part of the machine of this side and that side, and that's all we do anymore. Because I'm a strong advocate for multiplying the party game. We need more parties at the table. The two-party system's it's just a mess. It's just, again, like I said, I'm not them. And so we go into this game of they're the radical left socialists, they're the alt-right fascists, and neither is true for 9 out of 10 of the candidates, but that's enough to get people in and out of their seats in their offices and whatnot. And that just perpetuates the mess that we're in my opinion. All right. Plug, website, Facebook page, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to get out of here. We got other stuff we got to do today.
Oh yeah. So yeah, give me a follow. It's Jen McMahon for City Council.
I will put the link in the show notes for those that want it that way.
Yeah, that'd be great. I also have Instagram, McMahon for City Council, and my website is getting ready to drop on Friday.
Okay.
And that's just McMahonforCityCouncil.com.
Okay, I'll go ahead and put that in there. I'll have the show done and packed up and put out here in a couple hours at most. So if you click the website, it's going to not go there yet. Got a couple days. It's going to give you an error or some under construction page for sure. Well, I skipped an important question, but I'll save it for next time. We'll talk again. I really appreciate you taking the time today. That was a good conversation. I very much enjoyed our time together. If there's nothing else from you, I'm going to play the outro, and we'll call it a day.
Good to go, Seth.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jen. Almost in agreement, everybody. Jen McMahon, running for District 4 in the city. She is going to have a website and all that other stuff soon. Well, like I said, I'll put that in the show notes. We are almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to our website, almostinagreement.com, and you can get all the episodes there, or you can go on to any of your favorite podcast providers and get us there as well. While you're there, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or your podcast provider, give us a good review, a like, a share, all that kind of stuff. Because as we were talking about right there in the tail end, it's a matter of being an informed voter and knowing what you're actually voting for or against when you get the chance. So get out there and vote, but do so smartly. We are brought to you today by Fanatic Brewing, fanaticbrewing.com. For sponsoring the show. Their tap room is 2727 North Central. That is the tap room at Fanatic Brewing. They're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 5 p.m. to sometime later than that. Thursday night open mic comedy. Friday, Saturday, $5 Black Angus burgers, $5 Black Bean burgers. We're almost in agreement. I squeezed it all in before the end of the song. Thank you guys for listening. We'll talk to you all soon.